Shimseru biyado. You hear this? Shekileloto. Apparently, Mr. Sorcerer, a magician called, was hired by Sichon to curse Moav and deliver Moav into the hands of Sichon. So he's quite a busy sorcerer guy that's used in the Middle East. And you know what helped overturn Moav? The nation of Sichon hired Bilam to curse them. Moav is humiliated. Their lands are taken over. Is that the only time we're learning about the humiliation of Moav? Well, the king of Moav, who is really a prince of Sichon, we learned that in our shiurim this week, and there's a rotation system inside Moab. They're devastated. They don't have their own kings. They're working export-import kings. And what is happening? Their country says, we got to hire someone to take care of Israel. And they pay good money to Bilam. And time after time, instead of Bilam cursing, he is blessing. Each and every time, this is humiliating. This is causing, and in English, shame to the nation of Moab. And here we are spectators watching more and understanding more about the humiliation of Moab. Bilam, this high-class sorcerer, magician in the Middle East from somewhere in northern Syria, to curse Israel. Wow, he's fighting 3 times with his donkey. 3 times his donkey outwits him. And he tries, and he's outwitted by his donkey, and he hits his donkey. And every time Moab sends a new commission, a new team, there are no results. And he's paying good money. Humiliation after humiliation. Is there a reason why Moab is so humiliated? Is there something built in their system? Okay? Something in their system that leads us to understand that as far as their midot are concerned, their character building, they are really messed up. And maybe there's something built in historically, because you know the roots of Moav. We're talking now that if Moab is on the other side of the Dead Sea, that's where the meeting place is right now, right? Moab is sitting at the edge of their border, and they're bringing Bilam to curse Israel. Well, on the other side, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, on the other side of the Dead Sea, there were countries or nations called Sodom and Amorah and others. And in these Yam HaMelech towns, not only was it low in elevation, and not only is it the lowest part on earth, but these people were the lowest on earth. And they deserved utter destruction, even that Avraham Avinu tried his best to pray for them, that maybe they'll be tzaddikim, and maybe they'll be returning in tshuva, doing penitence. It was not successful, although we saw the love of Avraham Avinu, and Hashem decided to destroy those cities. Who was taken and saved? Lot. And his daughters. And they honestly thought that they're the only individuals left of mankind on the universe, on the planet of Earth. They had no GPS reception with other cities. They had no walkie-talkies. They had no connection. And there we saw that the daughters induced their father to have relations with them. And the first one that was born, look at the source. Although I didn't bring my pen, I left one letter out. Can you just have a pen or a pencil for a second? Pink, of course. Or green, whatever. There you go, green. That's what I would think. Vateled. Look at source number 1. The Vav disappeared. I'm reading the source. Breshit, chapter 19, verse 37. Vateled. Right, I'm reading the source sheet. If you can possibly show. Avram.
Yes.
Oh, you show there? Okay. Vateled abechira ben. The firstborn gave birth to a boy. Vatikra shmo Moav. That was the name she gave. It says Vatikra. She gave. Who Avi Moav Adayom. The Torah is talking from a perpetual point of view. Forever and forever. That's the name of Moav Adayom. Adayom meaning for centuries and centuries, for generations and generations. What does the word Moav come from? Ibn Ezra gives you the pshat. You see it underneath. Ibn Ezra, Moav, Kimo, Me'av, from the father. The highest level of adultery. The highest level of Gilui Arayot. A father and daughter having relations. A mamzer. And you're proud of it. And you disclose it. And you publicize it. Yeah, this is for me. This is for my father. I gave birth I had relations with my father. Aren't you shameful? No, we're not shameful. No shame. No shame whatsoever. So the foundations of this nation is born out of the absence of shame, the absence of busha. Is busha a good or bad attribute? Should you or should you not have shame? Well, let's take advice with Moshe Rabbeinu. Do you remember the first time Moshe Rabbeinu was contacted by God? Which event are we referring to?
Yeah.
The burning bush. Look at source 2. Shmot Perigimel, Pasuk Vav. Vayomer. God reveals himself at the burning bush, and he talks to Moshe and he says, how do you do? Do you know who I am? And God says, Anochi Elokei Avicha. It's a type of mistake. I'm the God of your father. Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Velokei Yaakov. I'm the God that revealed, spoke to, prophesied your forefathers. Okay? I'm not a hypothetical or theoretical God. I'm a God that revealed myself. I had contact. Your ancestors were prophets. When Moshe hears this, and of course Moshe heard the story, his father called, taught him Sefer Bereshit. His grandfather called Kehat, and his great-grandfather called Levi. Told the story all the way back to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Wow. When Moshe senses that the God of his fathers is talking to him, what does he do? Line 2. Vayaster Moshe Panav. He covers his face. He can't even look. He's full of busha, shame. I'm standing before the holiness, and I'm made out of tissue and skin and bones. I'm human. Ki yareh me'abit el Elokim. Yes, fear to look at, to view at God. When he's seeing the fire, and he sees a revelation of godliness there, maybe even an angel of God, he's just full of shame. In other words, busha is one of the main foundations of developing the fear of God. If I understand who God is about and what he's about and how great he is, and I'm only a mortal, I'm only a human being. Wow. I'm like submitting myself. Vis-a-vis God, I'm like, I can't even expose myself. I'm full of shame. God is so great. God is so wonderful. He's so great. So on this hand, shame, busha, is essential for developing in the nefesh the attribute of the fear of God. At the same time, this gentleman sitting next to me, Mr. Avram Odialani, was never ashamed or shy when it came to learning Torah. Never. He's always asking questions. He knows that when it comes to learning Torah, as the Mishnah teaches us in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our fathers, tell everyone the Mishnah, Lo habaishan lamed. Habaishan, the person who's so full of shame or shyness, he's not going to study Torah. He's not going to be successful studying Torah because questions have to be asked. And if you're going to be shy and stifle yourself and not ask questions, you're not going to get food. You know it all, right? You don't have any questions. Yeah, you're with the kippah. Is it such a thing? That you know it all. And you don't have curiosity. And you don't have lack of understanding. We all have a lack of understanding. Therefore, we have to ask questions. Like right now. Avram, you have the floor.
Actually, this caused Moshe Rabbeinu a bit of a problem. When he came, he asked,
what is your name?
He wanted to see God. God didn't show him his face. Because you remember, Moshe, when I was revealed to you, and you hide it your face. Now I'm hiding my face.
Midah keneged midah. Okay, and interesting. My dear friends, so like many of you are learning in the book called Mesilat Yesharim, The Path of the Just, like you started learning with Rabbi Newman, you said. Our sages have the insight and wisdom to teach us not only about each trait, but where and when to utilize it. When to use busha, when not to use busha. When to use zrizut, and when not to use it. In fact, Rav Kook writes in source number 3, in his holy book called Orot HaKodesh, volume 4, Taf Lamed Bet, page Taf Lamed Bet, he says the following: Dveikut Elokit shel tzadikim tamid malei busha. The greatest of tzadikim that are in the theme of their lives, their focal point of life is to be cleaving unto God in all ways, in all paths, they're always full of shame. Meaning, they realize how great godliness is. And they realize how limited we can be. And therefore they reach, there are 2 levels. Rav Kook writes about it. Chazal wrote before that about the fear of God. There's a yirah, fear of punishment. I'm just afraid I'm not going to violate the Torah, so I'm fearful he's going to punish me. But there's a higher level called what? Yirat haromimut. Fear out of the exaltedness of God. He is so great. And when I'm connected to and cleaving onto, I feel uplifted, but I develop a yirah. But the great tzaddikim are carrying this trait of busha because they're always aware about the greatness of God. Have you seen ever on a place where the chazan prays? There's like, you can see in large letters the famous verse of King David, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. I've placed God opposite me always. Okay? This always is something that the tzaddikim, the greatest tzaddikim, are cognizant about. So let's learn a little more about this nation of Moav. They hire Bilam. Bilam comes and he's humiliated. That means the Moav is humiliated. The Aton is talking to him and he hits his donkey 3 times. And every time the king of Balak takes Bilam to a different mountain viewpoint to look at Israel with his bad eyes, with his evil eye, and to curse them, a blessing comes down. Humiliation after humiliation after humiliation. What does, if you were the contractor and you contracted Bilam to curse Israel for the Moabite nation, and time after time after time, at least 3 times, not only is he not weakening your enemy, but what is he doing? He's grading them and hiding them. What would you do, Mr. Contractor? Tell the truth.
Fire.
Fire. Fire him. Okay. Can you please find?
Not kill.
Can you please find at the end of the parsha was Bilam fired? Let's look.
No.
Let's look, please. After all the allegorical poetry, all the great blessings that he blessed us,
25.
please, in chapter 24, Kaf Daled, after the last time, and even Bibi Netanyahu and his administration took a verse from here and called this war, what is the name of this war?
Rising.
The rising lion from verse 9 of chapter 24. Do you see that? The rising lion. After that, we're in verse 10. Vayichar af Balak. Wow, is he mad? El Bilam. Vayispok et kapav. He claps his hands out of anger. And he says, again, I'm reading chapter 24, verse 10. Vayomer al Balak el Bilam. He says to him, Lakov oivai kraticha. I called you to curse my enemies. Vine, and behold, berachta barach, surely you blessed them. How many times?
3 times.
Zeh shalosh pe'amim. 3 times. I've had enough. V'ata, and now, verse 11, here is the firing of him, sending him home. Berach lecha el mikomecha. Get out of here. Get out of here. Go to your place. Go to your place. Why? Amarti chaberecha becha. I thought I would surely honor you. V'nei minacha shemiko. But God has taken away any honor from you. Okay. Is that it? Finito de la comedia? Is he gone?
No.
Or does Bilam involve himself more? As we turn the pages and he delivers even yet another prophecy about the end of days, about the Messiah in verse 17, and that he's going to pound away from the corners of Moav, and so on and so on, and Edom, which later becomes Italy, the Catholic Church, they will be inherited and driven away. And after all, about seeing Amalek, what's going to happen at the end of days, we keep on turning the pages until until the end of chapter 24. Read the last pasuk with me. Vayakom Bilam, he gets up. Vayelech, and he goes. Vayashov limkomo, he returns to his place. Vegam Balak halach ledarko, and Balak goes to his place. The reader thinks innocently, this is the end of the relationship between Bilam and Balak. Bilam does not do what the king wants him to do. Balak and the nation of Moav are humiliated and humiliated and humiliated each time. Their enemy, Israel, is what? Is getting stronger even. And of course, behind the scene, when we're opening up Chumash Devarim, and we learn Torah Hashem Timimah, the Torah of God is complete and wholesome, and we don't suffer from being narrow-sighted and just looking at this book. And we know that at Sinai, God warned the Jewish people, do not provoke war to Moav. Wow. Had the Moavites known about this, they wouldn't have wasted their money, time, and energy and gone through humiliation time after time. We're not allowed to attack Moav. Which convert will come out of Moav in the future? Ruth. And from Ruth, the kingdom, Mashiach. The kingdom, the anointed kingdom of David. But they didn't know about that. And they didn't trust anything in anything. And now we begin reading the new chapter, Perek 25. And I want you to remember, put things into perspective. The nation of Israel is, as we say in Hebrew, ototo, about ready to enter into the land of Israel. All of this is happening in the culmination of the career of Moshe Rabbeinu. This is year number 40 to the exodus of Egypt. All the accountings of the next Chumash, which is called Chumash Devarim, is only but 36 days of the life of Moshe Rabbeinu. 36 days. We're about to go in. These are the last preparations. Moshe Rabbeinu, in the beginning of the book of Devarim, Ho'il Moshe Be'er et HaTorah Azot. Anyone have any questions? Come now. Because I'm not going to be here in another month or so. It doesn't say to them another month, but he now opens up office. This is his last end of his career for Talmud Torah teaching. Whoever has questions, come to me right now. And he only will begin teaching when he opens his speech and we've now finished the wars against Sichon, the king of Emori, and the war of Og Melech HaBashan, and we conquered all of eastern Eretz Yisrael, from the middle of the Dead Sea all the way up to the Golanites in those two wars. Now, I want to just introduce and say, when you're about to meet up with a very holy event, when something so special, unique, and holy will happen, like the crossing of the Jewish people over the water called the Yarden, the Jordan, and enter into the holy land that was promised 400 years ago to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and more, then there are powers in the world that are going to be there to challenge us, to thwart us away. God, you think God's going to give you, God's promising you a rose garden in life?
No.
Do you think life is cherry pie and Chevrolet or a Buick? I don't know what the name of the car is called. No, life is not glatt. You know what the word Yiddish glatt means? Smooth. No halachic questions, right? Smooth. Flat.
Glad kosher.
Glad kosher. No, there could be difficulties. And here it is, a major difficulty. I'm reading the new chapter, chapter 25. Please follow. Vayeshev Yisrael Bashitim. And may our learning of Torah strengthen all our soldiers, B'ezrat Hashem, in the Gaza Strip and everywhere else. And may it also, through our study of Torah, all the wounded, the thousands of soldiers that are wounded in this amazing war of heroism, may they be healed. Especially the son of the one that hosted us in Chana. Her son is called Eitan Ben Adi, and also the neighbor of my daughter in Petah Tikva, he doesn't see in one eye, cannot hear in one ear, and his feet were amputated. I'm sorry. That is Eitan Ben Ohad Ben Liat. I'm reading chapter 25. Vayeshev Yisrael Bashitim. Shittim is opposite Moav. The name of a town. Obviously, what was growing in that area was a famous tree in the desert called Eit Shita, the acacia wood tree, where a lot of the wood was used. That type of wood was used for the Mishkan, the Eit Shita. Okay? And here it says, Vayachel ha'am liznot el benot Moav. Uh-oh. The word ha'am, always do not make a mistake and think that it means everyone. It simply means a group. But here we're talking about a large group, apparently, as we're going to see later. And who is prostituting? Benot Moav, the daughters of Moav. Do they have shame? No shame. Just like where they come from. No shame whatsoever. They're prostituting. What does it lead to? Verse 2. Vatikrena la'am lizivchei Elohim vayochal la'am vayishtachavu le'Elohim. There's a Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin that talks about that there were merchants, women merchants, selling clay pishtan, beautiful white shirts. And they ambushed us. How did they ambush us? One woman was selling outside the tent. And then, when she quoted the price, another younger woman came out of the tent, hit her entire body, and said, I'm selling the same thing for less money. Come into my tent. And she was a prostitute. And she basically seduced them into eating and bringing their korbanot, their sacrifices, and bowing down to their gods. What's happening here is a ricochet of events, of a spiritual decline of a large group of Jewish people, initiated by the women of Moav. That means that Israel right now is falling and falling. But it's not just prostitution, which is a lack of busha, an absence of busha. It goes further. In verse Gimel, in verse 3, the Torah says, Vayitzamed Yisrael levaal peor. The Torah doesn't just choose any verb. Each and every word is divine and has meaning. God willing, when you get married to your wife, you may want to buy her, listen to this, tzmidim. What are tzmidim?
A necklace?
With? A necklace, though, with what?
Pendant or?
One pearl next to the next pearl. They're tzmudim. They are attached one to another. The word tzamud. There was a race between two runners, and they were tzmudim. They were, what's the word? I don't know.
Close.
They were on line with this. They were just like the same. They finished at the same second, split second.
Tie.
What is it?
Two-way tie.
Two-way tie. Tzamud is like attached to one another, like beads or a necklace, right? They have what are they called? Pearls or something else? Pearls. Okay, that's what Vayitzamed is. They were so attached to the idolatry called Baal Peor. And here we read about the anger of God aroused. Vayichar af Hashem, Israel. What is this Baal Peor? This is one of the main Moabite, Canaanite idolatries that they had. There was a midnight god of the desert called Baal Tzafon. There was a god of habitation they had called Baal Ma'on. And there was also a Baal Zvuv, a god of flies, probably some sort of god of decay. However, the worst was Peor. What was Peor? The word Peor is an opening, a cavity, let's say, in the ground. They put their idol in the ground. And the way of serving this idol, as the Talmud explains in Masechet Sanhedrin, is that you undress yourself and excrete your wastes on the idolatry idol, on that image that's in the ground. Do you hear what I said? Not only is it gross, of course it's gross, but it's full of the absence of busha. This is led by the women of Moav. Yes, sir.
Where were the Jewish men's wives when all this was going on?
We learned in one of our shiurim this week, based on the Netziv of Volozhin, that ever since we conquered these two nations, which may be the last few months, Sichon and Og, were scattered across Transjordan, living in many different areas. And parts of us are living next to the Moabite border, opposite the Dead Sea. And apparently there are marketplaces, according to this passage in the Gemara, and the women of Moav are selling clothing and other things. Has nothing to do that we're giving out some sweet chocolates right now. Sure. Enjoy. Take one and pass for the others. It's kosher.
No, yes, I understand, but I don't want to.
Okay. I'm not insulted. Okay, enjoy the parava. It's marzipan. Okay, enjoy. Amen. I'm not going to watch. You can take.
You too.
Thank you. I'm assuming we're talking about a marketplace, and the men have left their wives to go shopping. And here, through prostitution, which leads to eating their sacrifices and eventually bowing down or shamelessly taking off their dress and excreting their waist. There's even a Gemara.
What?
They would take off their pants,
Why the prostitute did this?
and they did it.
Why? They became already money.
When the Jewish people sin, we're the best in sinning. There's no one better than us. As the Maharal of Prague explains, let me before you go into shock, let me try to explain to you. We're a nation with great potential, with great energies and divine capabilities. We're not like a parva nation. We're not like a nation that's doesn't succeed or does not excel. We excel either in good actions or bad actions. Okay, we're not the average type of person in the world. You can measure this by probably the Nobel Prizes in science and other things in the world, in high tech and banking and economics and poetry and writing and army and security and high tech and low tech and drip irrigation and all the fields. We're the top. However, as the Maharal of Prague explains, you've heard of the city of Prague? As the Maharal of Prague explains in his book called Netzach Yisrael, the Eternity of Israel, when we use these great powers that we have, but for negative things, then we submerge, we go so down, so far. Here, the Yetzer Hara of the Jewish people is the highest of any nation. And when they lead to one major sin, and here we're talking about a cardinal sin of adultery, we're dealing with sleeping with women and then eating of sacrifices, then the Yetzer Hara is hooped up, hyped up. It's like a stock car engine. And right now what we're doing is leading to another sin. This Baal Peor, as Rabbi Hirsch explains, I put here in number 9. I'll read it in English because you don't have it on you. Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch brings in his commentary that the idea of the Peor is a god of shamelessness. People would pay their homage by giving unabashed prominence. They would give the most important thing right now is the animal aspect of human life. Taking off your pants and unloading yourself, excreting your waste publicly into this opening in the field where their God is there. It was a cult. Okay? They believed Moav ideologically. You have to understand. It started off with May Abba. My child is a mamzer. Right? That's what she said. The daughter that gave birth to this child in time of Lot pronounced publicly that I had relations with my father. That's what she said. And my child is a mamzer, right? A mamzer, that's a chayav karet. A mamzer is a result of a karet prohibition. So we're learning and seeing that Moav, if we ask our question, why are they being humiliated time and time again? A war devastates them by Sichon. They hire Bil'am and it's not successful. They're humiliated, devastated. Do you know why? Because this nation is sinking into the level of beastliness. They're, in the wording of Rav Shimshon Rosh, they're stripping themselves of divine nobility. They think we're like a higher class of animals. Animals walk on 4. We're the type of animal that walks on 2 feet. Do you understand? And therefore, the great anger of God is here. And then God orders a court here. So, and the court, what do? They hang during the day the people that shame themselves to worship the God of shamelessness. And how many people are killed here? And then a Magefa happens afterwards. How many die?
24,000.
How many died in Chita Egel, in the sin of the golden calf? How many?
3,000.
And how many died in the plague against Korach?
24,000.
14,700. And how many are dying here?
24,000.
This is the greatest of all the sins. The greatest of all the sins. You have to understand what's happening here. To do your bowel movements opposite an idol. And this is the bait. And they would build, lounges. They would construct buildings. Bait or bayit. They would build buildings. And this is what our leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, has to struggle with this peor. Rav Kook writes that the peor is the root of all idolatry, because ideology that really stimulated more and more idolatry in the world was the peor. God, as you know, did chesed with us. I want to speak from an anatomy point of view with this. I heard from Rav Eliezer and Eli. 1 second, sir. Anything that's foreign in our body, anything that is not going to be used from a nutritional point of view, God allows our body to expiate it, to take it out. Okay? Now, the body doesn't digest it, correct? The body allows it to be taken out of the body. It's not part of me. It's not part of my personality. And therefore, it's taken out of the body. What does it smell like? Terrible. It's yuck, right? When you see a baby doing this, you try to teach him, this is yuck. Otherwise, he might start playing with his kaki and stuff. It turns us away. It's something we call in Hebrew mag'il. In English?
Disgusting.
Disgusting. Okay? Anything that's not needed in our world can bother us, can be disgusting. We have to get away from it. Truthfully, the foundation of serving God is just the opposite. We're learning to make havdalah, to separate what is needed and what is secondary or thirdary, whatever. Okay, what's important, what's not important. What's useful for the nefesh, what's not useful for the nefesh. There are things that are superficial that are not needed. But you know what? Maybe they're not so terrible, but they can. Someone asked about social media yesterday, but it certainly could bother us. And there are things that are so disgusting. Therefore, Avodah Zarah, from then historically and until today, they try to injure spirituality. They try to give more importance to beastly, animalistic type of life. And therefore, there are very clever ways of idolatry even today that we have to be careful for. And for instance, the prophet, look at please, when Moav is making a claim and sending a commission to Bil'am. What does he describe? Look at source number 6. Bamidbar Bet, Pasuk. Vayishlach Malachim, he sends the messengers to Bil'am. Pitorah, that's the name of the town, on the river. Eretz B'nei Likro, Lemor thing. Hine Am, there's a nation. Yatzami Mitzrayim. And what are they doing? Kisa et eina aretz. I purposely wrote in large letters. They're covering the eye of the earth. Interesting that they're using the word they're covering. That's the opposite of their ideology. They uncover themselves when they bow down to their idolatry. Israel is so much they're all over the place, like covering the earth. like the locust did in the time of the 10 plagues. So that's the term they use. Now, this incident of the last chapter, why did the girls of Moab do it? Look at source number 7. Rashi brings the Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin. Why did the girls of Moab prostitute? Ayedei atzat Bil'am. Oh, this was the advice of Bil'am. So we thought Bil'am, Litraot, come on. We finished with him? No. He went back, but he gave advice. He was paid a lot of money. And he says, the God of this people does not like lewdness, does not like promiscuity, does not like the laws of adultery. Send your girls over to prostitute with them, and then it's going to get their God. Man, he's going to kill them. And that's what's led over here. Gentlemen, this lack of shyness, Hosea, look at source number 8. Hosea the prophet, Perek Tet, verse 10. Read the second line. Hema bo val peor vayinazru laboshet. He's talking about Israel sinning with the peor, and they disliked shyness. They went away from shyness. In other words, it's clear to the prophets that this Moabite idolatry called Peor is going far, far away from shame. A person has to have a basic shame. Otherwise, how can he serve God? He has to realize the greatness of God. And who am I, a human being, with all our greatness? God is everything. And we're nothing compared. We're not 1/1,000,000th of God. There's not even a number in infinity. The greatness of God. You had a question, Mr. Itai.
No, you said that Baal Peor was the root of Avodah Zarah.
Rav Kook says that, yeah.
Rav Kook?
Yes. My dear friends, so on the one hand, Moav is a nation that has no shame. And they are devastated by Sichon. And they're devastated and humiliated by whatever attempts Mr. Bil'am makes. And we understand why they're devastated, why they deserve to be humiliated. And then they catch us off guard. Getting ready to go into Eretz Yisrael. The powers and energies are high struck. It's just maybe a few months from now. We're about to go in. The Yetzer Hara is working full time. He has a PhD from the University of Moscow and in Cambridge and Harvard. And he knows how to outwit us. And here the Jewish people fall in shamelessness. A God of shamelessness. And therefore, here there has to be a big tikkun, a big correction. Because this leads to a terrible plague where more promiscuity is done, more sexual immorality is done by a leader from the tribe of Shimon, and 24,000 die in a plague. Wow. Note later on that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he's going to be buried in a place called Mount Nevo, it will be opposite the place of Shittim. We're going to notice later in the book of Devarim that he's going to be buried in a place called Mount Nevo. We're not going to know where he's buried, but he's going to be buried opposite this place called Shittim. Why? There might be spiritual powers that Moshe Rabbeinu radiates, that will help Israel fight off the sin of idolatry for future generations. And his presence of his grave opposite this place called Shita will perhaps, in the Midrash I think talks about it, will aid the Jewish people to fight up against whatever negative energy has been created. Remember, the Chazal taught us every good thought and every good action creates an angel. Every bad thought and every bad action creates negative energy, negative angels, powers to go up against us. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he's going to be buried in Mount Nevo, it'll be opposite this place. And maybe it'll give the Jewish people the beginning of their tikkun. I mean, their tikkun is that they died. 24,000 people died. That's part of their correction. Remember, we believe that death is kapara. It's atonement for whatever sins that happened to them. And maybe that's going to give power to the Jewish people that we go into Eretz Yisrael. We have to combat idolatry. The land of Israel is the land of monotheism, the land of believing in one God. We can't go in if we have the sins of idolatry in our hearts or in our souls. These people die out. Many of the speeches of Moshe Rabbeinu have to stay away from idolaters. We have to make sure that they are abolished. There's no room for them to remain here. I want to end today's shiur by saying the following. These three great sins listed in our Torah, Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf, Chet HaMeraglim, the sin of the spies, or shall we call the sin of Korach as well, and then this great sin, the Torah does not shy away from recording the shortcomings of the Jewish people. Right? Only the Pope doesn't sin, we say, in a joking way. We have shortcomings. We can fall, but you know what? We can get up. That is the sign of the true trait of the Jewish people, that if we have a weakness, or if we fall, God forbid, we have the ability to stand up, do tshuva, pray to God, become more righteous. It's something like, remember, there's a runner, and you're running in a race. Before the beginning of the race, you go back a little in order to lunge forward and be competitive, right? A runner, before he begins, he goes back a little in order to charge forward. So too a car, if you're climbing a mountain, sometimes you have to go back a little to gain a little momentum and then climb the mountain as well. Okay? We believe that every yerida, every decline that we have, nationally and individually, is for a reason, is for a purpose. And part of our climbing in our life is falling or having difficulties. That difficulty or that fall is part of my climbing. Because we see everything in a wholesome way. We see everything in a complete way. And therefore, the Torah takes pride to show us when we fell. And from here, we stood up. From here, we corrected. From here, Pinchas does this heroic act of zealousness, as we see at the end of the parsha, and then he'll be awarded at the beginning of this parsha. Yes?
I don't understand it. Kohen killed people.
What?
The Pinchas Kohen killed people. Is
Yes.
it possible?
Yes.
And he was with dead people under one roof. Is a Kohen?
Very nice. Excellent question. How can Pinchas, as a high priest who has to pay attention not to become defiled, how can he kill someone and bring upon himself
Pure.
impurity? Beautiful question. May I shake your hand? Do you want an answer?
Yes.
Okay. I'll give you an answer.
Or another one.
Very nice. I think the answer is very simple. If you're the right person at the right place and the right time, then you must take the privilege and obligation to do so. The laws of zealousness are very hard. You have to be a very God-fearing person with no personal intent, without any vested interest in this matter, looking for pride, and be full of God-fearingness. And when there's a great desecration of God, which there was, a leader, prince of the tribe of Shimon, having relations with this Midianite princess, then you cannot sit still. Then you have the power of the Torah, that the mitzvat aseh, a positive commandment of being a zealot and killing the people, will override the negative commandment of not being defiled. And that mitzvah can only be done by certain persons at a certain time in a certain place. And Pinchas, he can do it. And therefore he did it. That's an important principle. Gentlemen, have a Shabbat Shalom. Kol Tov. Chazak u'Baruch. Keep on learning the parsha and so on and so forth.